All right, so now we're going to do our first circuit. And for this, we're going to hook the battery up to one bulb, and then we're going to hook it up to two bulbs and three bulbs where the bulbs are in series. And in series means they're in a line. So if you remember that, that's going to help us understand how we actually will wire these circuits up. And of course, I'm going to walk you through it. The first thing you're going to want to do to get ready for this is, because we're going to measure some voltages, is take our multimeter and turn the dial. You may have had it down on this resistance part down here. Now you're going to want to turn it up so that you're in this upper left hand region. The symbol you'll see is V with two lines by it. That means DC voltage. And you're going to want to set it to 20, which means this will at most read 20 volts. If we think about our battery pack, we have these two batteries and they're hooked up in a line in series, and each one of these is 1.5 volts, which means between the red wire and the black wire we have about 3 volts, maybe a little bit more. Okay. So we need something where we can read that voltage, and the 20 will do that for you. Okay, so you're going to need your 3 bulbs and you're going to need 4 of your wires. Let's start by hooking up just one bulb by itself. So I'm just going to grab 2 of the wires. You have various colors. I'm grabbing red and black. It really doesn't matter what you grab. The colors are there sometimes just to help you visualize what's going on. Okay. So I'm going to hook up, I'm going to pick my bulb 1. So here's bulb 1. And I'm going to hook up one end of my clip and clip it onto the black. And then I'm going to take the other end of my clip and hook it up to one end of the bulb. And again, these can be a little slippery. There's not any voltage here, so you can pull them off actually, just make sure they don't touch. And I'm going to clip it on there. On the other end, I'm going to use white here. Again, you can pick whatever color you want. I'm going to take one end of the wire. And again, you want to make sure that you're clipping, and you can test that by lightly tugging, and you should feel a little resistance. And then I'm going to hook the other wire up to my bulb. Now my circuit's working because my bulb has lit up. So how can I understand my circuit? Okay, well, the red in this battery pack is the positive end. And remember, there's high voltage and low voltage, which we designate by plus and minus. If I follow out my finger, I can take my finger and I follow out, I go through the red into the white wire. It goes into one end of the bulb. It then goes through the bulb, comes out, goes through the black wire, and back into the battery. And what is this I'm talking about? Well, that's the current. The current, the charged particles are flowing out of the red wire, they're going through the bulb, and they're going into the other end of the battery pack. And that is what we call a completed circuit. And again, visually what I will observe is that the light bulb will light up. Okay, one thing you're going to want to note in the table is, again, for this is because we're going to compare the brightnesses of the bulbs to each other. There's nothing to compare here, so just kind of note the brightness of a single bulb. Kind of keep it in your memory. The other thing we're going to want to do is measure the voltage. And whenever we measure the voltage, we measure it across something, which means one of these goes on one end of the bulb, and the other of these goes on the other end of the bulb. And so to do that, I'm going to take the red wire, since this was the red side and that's the positive side, I'm going to push it into here. I'm going to take the black wire, and let's see if we can see our reading here, and I'm going to push it into here. And you're going to see that I get a voltage reading, and I'm getting a voltage reading of about 2.20 volts. Okay. So you're going to want to remember that number and write it down. Next, I'm going to want to hook up now 2 bulbs in series, which means I want them in a line. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to leave bulb 1's, the positive one, hooked up, and I'm going to unhook it. So the idea is that for bulb 2 to be in a line, if I imagine that my current's going to come out of here, it's going to go into bulb 1, it's going to come out of bulb 1, go into bulb 2, come out of bulb 2, go into bulb 2, come out of bulb tube, and then go back into the circuit. So that will put 2 bulbs in a series. So how do I do this? Well, the first thing is I'm going to, as we said, we uncook that bulb. I then use a wire to connect one end of the bulb 1 to one end of the bulb 2. And the key thing is you don't have to worry about which way you're hooking the bulb 2 up. Even though there is a plus or minus, it doesn't really matter actually. These bulbs are bidirectional. But if you want to be systematic, that's perfectly fine. I think that's a good thing. So I hook it up to that. Now notice I'm coming out of here. I'm going into bulb 1. I'm coming out of bulb 1. And sorry for the spiral, but I'll try to straighten it out here. I don't want to get out of the camera range though. So we come out, go into bulb 1, come out of bulb 1, go into bulb 2. And then now I want to go out of bulb 2 and go back into my battery pack, and that will complete the circuit. Okay. So now I have a completed circuit. And one thing that we are going to ask you to do is to compare the brightnesses of these bulbs. And it's a little hard to see, but they are actually lit. I'm going to want you to compare the brightnesses of the bulbs to each other. And then I want you to compare the brightness of bulb 1 to the brightness now to the brightness of bulb 1 is before. So there's going to be 2 tables in there. You're going to be jumping between these 2 tables, but so fill that out. The next thing we're going to want to do is measure the voltage across each bulb and the voltage across the entire circuit. So to measure the voltage across each bulb, it's the same thing. I'm going to put this on the plus end here, notice that, and I'm going to put it on the minus end here, and I'm getting a voltage reading, say, of about 1.1. You might have slightly different because these bulbs are different. I'm then going to measure the voltage across bulb 2, same thing. I'm going to want to put the red on the one side and the black on the other side and write that voltage down. If you got a negative number, that's okay. That just means that you got the bulb switches, you have it switched, right? So if I switch these 2 ends, notice that my reading becomes negative. So that means I just need to flip my wires because we're always going to want positive. Now the final thing you're going to want to do is to measure the voltage across both of them. And I'm going to then go from here to here. Now, the last thing is going to be to put the third bulb into series. I'm going to want you to try and do this, but I am going to give you a hint. But think of it the same way. I have bulb, let's come out of here. I'm coming out of the plus. I'm going through bulb 1. I'm going to go through bulb 2, and now I want to come out of bulb 2 and into bulb 3. So the way I do that is the first thing I need to do is break this end of bulb 3. Notice we're always disconnecting this black wire. I can imagine that I'm going to put bulb 3 here so that if I come out of 1, go into 1, come out of 1, into 2, out of 2, into 3, which means I need a wire. So I'm going to grab another wire here. I'm going to hook that up. And again, I'm going to want to complete the circuit, which means take this black wire and hook it up. And so notice we're coming out, going into 1, out of 1, into 2, out of 2, into 3, out of 3. And you'll do the same thing with your trying to compare the brightnesses as well as measuring the various voltages. You're going to measure the voltage across 1, the voltage across 2, the voltage across 3, and then the voltage across the entire thing from 1 to 3.